I picked up this old pink painted dresser for just $10 at a yard sale last week, and as I began stripping away the layers of paint to restore this piece, a rare discovery shocked me. Here's how it looked when I found it. Pink and scratched, but definitely loved. Did you catch that? This was used as a changing table. The seller even offered me the baby changing pad as a bonus. I politely declined, but it's an offer I may one day regret if there's ever a Barry Jr. Now imagine with me what kind of wood might be hiding under this thick paint. I've restored dozens, maybe 100 pieces over the years, but each one still surprises me. I honestly have no idea what I'll find until I start removing the paint, so your guess, it's as good as mine. As I restore this old chest of drawers and refinish it in a way I've not done before, I thought it might be fun to unfold this story in a unique way, one you might be able to relate to. I'm always fascinated by the rich history behind each old furniture piece, but this one was a bit of a mystery, so here are some clues I'll look for as I continue working. I'll take a closer look at these dovetails in a moment. There was no maker's mark found on the back side or inside the drawers, and the lines on this dresser are clean and simple, which may indicate that this was homemade sometime during the Depression era. I don't think these Phillips head screws are original to the piece, and the pulls may not be either, but I won't really know until I remove the paint. Regarding who owned this dresser, I don't know anything beyond the fact that the lady I purchased this from painted this pink for a child's nursery, and that's okay. It sounds like it served her well. As I began uncovering one clue at a time, I wondered if this dresser first began life 150 years ago, maybe the proud creation of a small furniture shop, or handmade by a local cabinet maker and assembled with hand-cut dovetail joints. The visible baseline scored lines and the inconsistency between the pins of these dovetails would indicate that these were cut by hand. I'll be using a chemical stripper to remove most of the paint from this dresser, but I'll first try to scrape the top with a carbide scraper, and although I don't yet know the species of this wood, this was a major discovery. Notice the consistency of the grain pattern across the entire width of this dresser top. At the time, this looked to me like one solid 17.5-inch wide plank, which is worth celebrating. This recent discovery got me thinking about the nail that I drove in earlier. I decided to pull it back out and take a closer look at it, and it turns out it's a 2-inch square nail tapered on one side. These nails were cut from a sheet of iron with a stamped head, so we now know at least the nails date back to the 1800s. But maybe someone made this in the early 1900s and just used nails that they had in their shop for a long time. I always have to try these keys on every old furniture piece I work on that has locks. This time, I came close to a match. I'm ready to remove the rest of this paint with a chemical stripper. I'll pour it on, then spread it around with a disposable chip brush. The spring weather has still been cool here, so I found that after the first drawer, it wasn't necessary to cover this with plastic wrap to slow down evaporation. While I'm waiting, I'll prepare this afterwash product to help neutralize and remove the paint stripper. With this dresser, I'm slowly beginning to realize I may have acquired something special, so I'm excited to strip the paint next. I've mentioned recently that I'm looking for an old farmhouse and a few acres of land. Until then, I'm working on transforming each room in my current 90s built home. That's where today's sponsor comes in. I've partnered with FlexiSpot for a few years now, and I can't thank them enough for helping me upgrade this guest bedroom. FlexiSpot is probably best known for their standing desks and ergonomic chairs, but they also have great modern bedroom furniture. I wanted a very simple, modern look, so I put up a new smart fan by Dreo and painted the walls an off-white color. This FlexiSpot Japanese joinery bed frame with headboard is sleek, clean, and minimal, exactly the style and color I was going for. It's solid and sturdy with no creaking or wobbling, and I assembled it in under 30 minutes. I love that it works with any mattress without a box spring needed. Their matching nightstands are the perfect combination of style and function. The clean lines, drawers for storage, and a soft close feature make it feel more high-end than the price suggests, and I easily added my own choice of drawer pulls. My favorite part is their selection of washable rugs in many different sizes and styles. When they're dirty, you just toss them in the wash and they come out looking new every time. So if you're looking for simple, clean, and practical pieces that don't sacrifice design, I can't recommend FlexiSpot's bedroom collection enough. So check out the link in the video description and be sure to take advantage of the Memorial Day sales going on now. You can also get an additional $30 off the Japanese bed frame or mattress by using my code BARRY. And thank you FlexiSpot for sponsoring this video. Once I've scraped the paint using several different spatulas, I'll use number 2 steel wool, fine brass brushes, and this afterwash product to scrub the excess. I'll finish by wiping this off with shop rags. During this step, it's not necessary to remove all the excess. What remains can be removed with the carbide scraper and some sanding tools. Because this was likely handmade and only secured with a few small nails, I realized it would be much easier to remove all this trim from the faces of the drawer fronts. I'll gently clean these, label them accordingly, and set them aside for the sanding process. Throughout this project, I wondered often about the ways this dresser may have been used. Maybe it was in fact handmade in the mid to late 1800s, and first used as a gentleman's chest of drawers for many decades. Then, 60 or 70 years later, perhaps during the 1960s, it was considered dated and was an affordable option for a newlywed couple in their first home. Then maybe another 60 years later, just recently, it was used by another couple as a changing table in a nursery. When I flipped this upside down, I could see that the rest of this dresser was also assembled using square nails, and the top of this dresser is 2 jointed planks, the larger one being 14 inches wide. Although sturdy and functional, there are still more signs that this was likely homemade. Although the refinishing steps are often the same, each new project has its own set of unique challenges. Thankfully, there were no structural repairs to address here, But as I removed the paint from the sides of this dresser, I continued to discover many dings, scratches, and even a few cracks. These represent 100 to 150 years of unique stories that make this dresser truly special, and I fully intend to embrace the character marks. There were 2 holes found on the top of this dresser and 6 holes found on the backside. So there was either a top section to this dresser or some kind of vanity attached. Once I discovered this rare wood species under all the paint, the finish choice was an easy decision. So I'm going to make a traditional 2-pound cut of shellac by mixing 4 ounces by weight of blonde shellac flakes in 1 pint of denatured alcohol. As I work, I'll agitate this solution every hour for a minimum of 6 to 8 hours until the flakes have completely dissolved. Shellac is a natural resin secreted by the lac bug, primarily found in India and Southeast Asia. It's harvested from trees, refined into flakes or powder, and dissolved into alcohol to create a nice wood finish. I wanted something simple and traditional that would bring life to all the stories and minor imperfections from 150 years of service. This dresser is all solid wood, so I'll use both surf prep sanders and several hand sanding blocks to sand this entire piece from 80 grit to 120 grit to finally 180 grit. I'm about to get a closer look at this wood species. You may have already guessed it, or you've been following my YouTube community page. I believe this is American chestnut, a species that has been extinct for more than 100 years here in America. American chestnut trees once dominated the eastern forests of the United States. They shaded farms, fed communities, and built the country's homes and barns. Then in the early 1900s, the blight came, a foreign fungus that turned giants to stumps within a generation, wiping out most of these trees across the nation. So I don't often say this, but this dresser before me was a survivor of that piece of history, and I don't think this rare species should be painted again. I'll work on this dresser one piece at a time, and the final sanding is done by hand, with hand sanding blocks and 180 grit sandpaper, some hand sanding sponges, and these dental tools to continue removing some of the paint. This Memorial Day weekend, as I finished restoring this old piece of furniture and breathed new life into something that was nearly forgotten, I'd have deep regret if I didn't take a moment to honor those who served and have served and sacrificed for the freedoms we enjoy today. The freedoms we hold dear are built on the courage and dedication of those who came before us, so may we pause to remember with deep gratitude the lives given in service to our country. This project is dedicated to their memory. I'll remove and reuse all of these nails for the trim pieces on the drawer fronts. I thought I'd be able to sand these delicate pieces with the sponge-like pad on the sander, but I found it was much easier to sand every one of these by hand with a small sanding block. The wood used for this trim and between the drawers on the front of this dresser is a much darker species, maybe walnut, but I don't think so. It will provide a nice contrast against the American chestnut, something I wasn't expecting. It took about 30 minutes to sand all of these drawer pulls. This method was easy, but I was not satisfied with the look of the pulls, so I'll need to come up with a better option. These pulls with modern screws are definitely not original, so there was nothing lost. A good way to remove paint from hardware like these locks is to soak them in vinegar and bring close to a boil for about 10 minutes. The paint should peel right off using a vinyl brush. I expected these locking mechanisms to be plated, but it looks to me as though they're just bare steel, so I'll need to protect them using a lacquer. As I continued sanding the backside of this dresser, I discovered this and wondered if this was the original stain color. To attach the trim to the drawer fronts, I'll apply water-based hide glue and use the original nails to realign each piece. Once attached, I'll use a hand sanding sponge to remove any paint still found in the wood grain. I'm so glad I labeled all of these trim pieces, and when I put these back in the same spots, they fit well, but not all of them align perfectly. I think that's what I love about a handmade piece. They often have so much more character that you eventually learn to love and appreciate. Although I used the power sanders on the larger sections of this dresser, like the top and the sides, this was a true passion project, and I spent many hours hand sanding and refining all the unique details to the best of my ability. If you've ever tried to remove paint from old furniture, then you might understand what I mean. I'm finally ready to apply the shellac, and I'll use a medium to firm bristle brush to apply 3 coats of shellac to the entire piece, letting each thin coat dry for about 30 minutes in between. It's always at this point, after spending days removing all the paint, that I panic for just a second, thinking this finish might be too yellow or orange, but I have to trust the methods that I've learned from others. As expected, these modern drawer pulls were nothing to be desired, but I had to see the process all the way through. Thankfully, I still have extra walnut drawer pulls from a recent project, and I think they'll match the trim almost perfectly. The final step is to apply this furniture wax polish by Fitties in the color antique brown. I'll wipe this on with fine steel wool and let it dry for about 20 minutes. This will help cut down the texture and the sheen of the shellac. In my opinion, this brown furniture wax is the perfect way to not only add an extra layer of protection, but also provide more depth and charm to its already unique character. Once the wax has dried for about 20 minutes, I'll use this open weave cotton cloth by Gilboys to buff out the wax. I mentioned some of the ways I thought this dresser may have been used, and looking forward, the irony is certainly not lost on me. For now, this dresser will once again be used as a gentleman's chest of drawers, but who knows, maybe this cycle starts over again, and eventually it will be used by a newlywed couple. Then one day, maybe a nursery changing table. For that reason, this old handmade dresser is a keeper. I've placed a handwritten letter in the top drawer of this dresser. This is a new beginning, but that's a mystery for another day. My name is Barry, and thanks for joining me. I'll see you next Wednesday evening for the midweek live stream session. Goodbye for now.